Hey everybody, it's Mr. Lambert, and here is your video with your test solutions for our Module 5 assessment that we took. I'm going to be working through the interactive version of the test. It'll look a little bit different than the one we took on paper, but these are the solutions to the questions that we had. All you're going to do to finish this assignment today will be to watch each of the questions here and then answer the question that pops up on Edpuzzle after you're done with each question. So make sure that you're watching carefully, taking notes as we go. I'm just going to walk through each of the solutions to the questions that we took. And then at the end, you'll just hit submit and finish up your Edpuzzle, and that will be your points. I will give you half credit for anything that you missed on the assessment. So question number 1 here was Morgan won 7 blue ribbons and 4 red ribbons at her horse show. So right now we've got 7 blue. Actually, hold on, let me get my pen going here. We've got 7 blue ribbons and 4 red ribbons. And it says, what is the ratio of red ribbons to blue ribbons that she won? So if I looked here, it was 7 blue to 4 red, but they're asking me red to blue, so I need to flip this upside down. So this would actually, for what we're looking for, we want our red number on top. That was 4 red and 7 blue. And I know this is it because I need red to blue. That means red will be my top number, my first number. My 2 would be my fraction line or my 2 dots to show the ratio. And then the blue number would go second. So it should be 7 or 4 over 7 or 4/7. So this right here would be our answer. It would be this guy right here. And we would move on to the next one. All right, number 2. The table shows the number of wins and losses for 4 hockey teams. So we've got our teams over here. We've got the Lightning, the Wolves, the Thunder, and the Eagles. And it says which 2 teams have the same ratio of wins to losses. So what we need to do is we basically need to figure out in lowest terms what our ratios are. So for the Lightning, I have 14 wins and 7 losses. So in this case, I've got a 2 to 1 ratio. And I know that because if I divide 14 by 7, I would get 2. So that's a 2 to 1 ratio. In this case, for the Wolves, I can divide 15 and 5 both by 5. And that is a 3 to 1 ratio. So I have a 2 to 1 ratio. I have a 3 to 1 ratio. These are not the same, so I have to keep going. 15 and 3 is my next set of ratios. And this would not give me, though, 3 to 1. I would divide these both by 3, so I would actually get a 5 to 1 ratio. So 5 to 1, still I've got a 2 to 1, a 3 to 1, a 5 to 1, and then down here I've got the Eagles. And they have won 12 and lost 6. So if I divide 12 by 6, I actually get 2 to 1. And so as you can see here, here's a 2 to 1 ratio. And here is a 2 to 1 ratio. So our teams that have the same ratio of wins to losses would be the Lightning and the Eagles, even though they have different numbers of wins of losses. The ratio for both is a 2 to 1 ratio. So what I'm looking for this one would be the Eagles and the Lightning. So I would go in there and just pick this guy right here. Eagles and Lightning was the correct answer there. Again, you are looking on that one for the 2 teams that have the 2 to 1 ratio. The other ratios were 5 to 1 or 3 to 1 for the Wolves and 5 to 1 for the Thunder. So those would not be equivalent or equal ratios to the other 2. I'm going to skip number 3, and then we're going to hop on to number 4 because we did not do number 3 on our test. Actually, we skipped number 4 too. We've got to move on to number 5. So our next one was a museum recorded that it had 988 visitors in 4 hours. We wanted to know what is the unit rate in visitors per hour. And remember, when we want a unit rate, we want our bottom number to be 1. And this is per hour. So that's what we're looking for as we are working with our unit rate. We want it to be per 1 hour. So what we would do to solve this problem, at least one way to solve this, would be to take our number of visitors that we know. We have 988 visitors in 4 hours. And we also know that we want to get this over to per 1 hour. Our per hour would be our unit rate. So we want our hours to be 1. So now we just need to think about how we can get this bottom number 4 to change to 1. And remember, ratios are always multiplicative, so I have to multiply or divide. In this case, I'm going to divide this 4 by 4 to get to 1. So I'm going to be dividing by 4, going that way. And if we do it to the bottom, ladies and gents, we will do it to the top. So we're going to take our 988 and also divide that by 4. And if we do so, this would be 22 and then 125. And if we use our calculator, which we can do, we would just take 988. You guys can't see me, but I am actually doing my calculator right now. So I would just take 988 on my calculator and divide that by 4. In which case I would get 247 for my top number and 1 for my bottom number. And this is, of course, visitors per hour. So this is per 1 hour, so that's our unit rate will be 247 to 1. So 247 visitors for that 1 hour. There we go. And that would be our answer, 247. And if you got any questions on that, make a note of that. We can talk about it when we get back to class on Tuesday. All right, moving on to question number 6. All right, so it says the graph here shows the ratio of apples to oranges in the different fruit baskets that Keenan makes. So Keenan's making fruit baskets. He's got some oranges. He's got some apples. And for every so many apples, there's going to be an equal number of oranges. There's going to be a ratio. And it looks here like our ratio starting out, we know is 4 apples will give us 6 oranges. Again, if we look at our graph, we can see that 8 apples will give us 12 oranges. And last but not least, we know that 12 apples will give us 18 oranges if we look over at this side. So our question says, if Keenan makes baskets with 6 apples, what is the ratio of apples to oranges written as a fraction? We've got to enter the correct fraction into the box. On yours, you just needed to write in your answer. So in this case, remember, if we are looking to find an answer, we can remember that basically our answer is going to be found on the straight line that we can do by connecting all of our dots. So in this case, I know by looking at my graph here, I know that if I go start at the 6 and I look up, my number of apples is going to be somewhere between 8 and 10, somewhere around this area. So I'm going to guess somewhere around 9, but let's also work at trying to find our unit rate here. So I know starting out that if I have 4 apples, sorry, that's a 4. If I have 4 apples, I have 6 oranges. If I work with this, let's get these down to our lowest common denominators here. I don't think we can get to 1, but we can actually divide these both by 2. And I think we can get this down to 2. 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So we're basically at a 2 to 3 ratio. So if I am looking then, I'm going to change my color here. If I'm looking then for a ratio where my apples, or my top number, is going to be 6, which is what I'm looking for here, 6 apples, I just need to figure out what I'm doing to get between 2 to 6 so I can do the same thing to 3. And in this case, 2 times 3 is going to equal 6. So if I do 3 times 3, that should give me my bottom number here, which will be 9. And like I said before, the 9 actually fit in on our number line here for 6. We know it's somewhere between 8 and 10 here, somewhere right around there. So 9 oranges is going to be the number of oranges, but the ratio altogether would be 6 to 9. So it was a 6 to 9 ratio. Again, if you've got any questions on that, let me know. There are a number of ways you can go about doing that. Again, look at your graph, draw a straight line there, and if you can, you would see that our dot's going to fall right in between the 8 and the 10, which would be 9. Or you can find your ratio in lowest terms and then figure out what you can multiply those by to get to the new numbers you're looking for. In this case, we can simplify our ratio down to a 2 to 3 ratio as we did, and then I know 2 times 3 gives me that 6 I was looking for. So if we multiply our 3 by the same thing, that gave us our 9. So 6 to 9, apples to oranges ratio is what we were looking at there. And that would be the answer for number 6. Moving on, I'm going to flip my page here. We're going to look at number 7 together. Oh, hold on here. Let's clear that out. Go back to my mouse and let's pull this up. That's our next one. All right. Number 7 says, in 4 middle schools, the teachers to student ratio is equivalent. So for every so many teachers, there's always the same number of students. How many teachers and students are at each school? And enter the correct answers in the table, in the boxes in the table here. So again, what we're looking for is we are looking to find the common ratio between all of these things. And the only school we know all about is good old school letter A. And in this case, I know that for 15 teachers, there are 330 students. Actually, let's get rid of that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say for every 15 teachers, there are 330 students. Actually, what I'm going to write this way, those are my students. We'll put an S there and a T for teachers. I'm going to write it this way because what I want to do here is I'm going to divide 330 by 15, and that should give me the number of teachers for one student if it can come out evenly. Let's give that a try. I'm going to do that on my calculator. So I'll do 330 divided by 15. And when I do, so I'm dividing by 15 on both top and bottom, I get 22 students to one teacher. And this is my ratio here. This is what I'm dealing with for all of my numbers. Now, all I need to do is multiply this bottom number, which is our 1, by however many number of teachers, and that will give us our number of students. So if I take my 23 teachers that I have for letter B and multiply that by the 22 students for each one of those teachers, I'll do 23 times 22, and that would give me 506. Type in there 506 students. For C, I've got 550 students at school C. And again, because this is multiplicative, I know I'm not going to multiply my number of students, but actually I'm just going to divide that by the 22. And that will give me my number of teachers, which will be 25. And then we'll do the opposite again for school letter D. We'll take our 36 and multiply that by the 22 students per those 36 teachers, and we'll get 792 students. There you go. This is one of the most missed problems on the test. But remember, all you're doing is multiplying or dividing each number by 22 to get either the number of teachers or the number of students. So again, those answers would have been 506, 25, and then 972. All right. There was the answer for that one. If you've got questions, again, make a note of that, and we can talk about it on Tuesday when we get to class. All right. I'm going to move on down the line. We did do number 8, so let's work that one together, and then we can skip all the way to number 11 and finish up. So, Miss Patel drove 165 miles in 3 hours. If she continues driving at that same speed, how many miles will Miss Patel drive in 7 hours? And we're going to enter that correct answer, of course, into the box. So in this case, I need to find my unit rate of miles per hour. And what I know to start out with is I've got 165 miles in 3 hours. So if we do that and get down to 1 mile or sorry, 1 hour. So these are my hours on the bottom. And there's our miles at the top. What do I need to do to get from 3 to 1? Of course, I am dividing by 3. So 3 divided by 3 gives me my 1 hour over here. So I'm going to divide by 3 on the top as well for my number of hours. So I'm going to take my 165 and divide it by 3. And if I do that, that gives me 55 miles per 1 hour. And that's our unit rate, 55 miles per 1 hour. Now all we need to do to find out how far they drive in Ms. Patel drives in 7 hours, well, I've got 55 over 1 equals some number we don't know yet over 7. And again, to get from 1 to 7, we are multiplying by 7. So we're going to do the same thing with our 55 on the top. Multiply that by 7. Do that on my calculator, and I get 385 miles in 7 hours. So again, our answer here, the number of miles she drives in 7 hours would be 385. I'm going to go ahead and type that in here for you. There you go. So 385 miles in our 7 hours, and that was the answer to that one. All right, we're on to our last problem. I'm going to skip on over to number 11, which was our final problem on the test. It had a couple of parts, and this was a commonly missed one, but mostly because we didn't get the correct answers for our table in part A. Some of you put the incorrect answers in for part B, but I gave you credit as long as it matched what you had put in part A, but you may have missed the points for part A by not figuring out our actual ratio here. So again, Kaya recorded the distance she rode her bike during 4 different workouts. She rode the same number of kilometers per hour during each workout. So we're looking for a consistent unit rate here. Enter the correct answers in the boxes in the table to show how many hours or kilometers she rode. So first thing I need to do is find my unit rate. And to do that, I am going to take the 2 numbers that I know in my boxes. So I've got 1.5 hours, and that is 30 kilometers. Or if we wanted to switch this around, actually, when I write this in, I'm going to want to write it the other way because I want my kilometers up top. Because we want to do kilometers per hour. So that's usually kind of the unit rate we're looking for. So we've got kms per hour, and we want to know how many for 1 hour. How many kilometers per 1 hour? That's going to give us our unit rate. So in order to get from 1.5 to 1, I am dividing going this direction by 1.5. So I'm going to do the same thing at the top with my 30. And if I divide by 1.5, 30 divided by 1.5 equals 20. So I know my unit rate now is 20 kilometers for 1 hour. And now I can use this, my 20 kilometers per 1 hour, to multiply by the distance. So if I know 20 per 1 hour is going to equal how many? We don't know, for 10 kilometers. So in order to get from 20 to 10, I know, simple, easy breezy, I'm dividing by 2. And if I divide 1 by 2, I get 1/2 or 0.5. So I know for my number of hours here, this is going to be half an hour for my first box. 1.5 and 30, of course, would be my second box. And here, let's keep going. So remember, it's a 20-to-1 ratio. I'm going to clear out my screen here and go back in here. So now I know I've got a 20-to-1 ratio. And let's just deal with our next set of boxes. So I know my next number of hours is 2 hours in my box right here. And I know that to get from 1 to 2, I am multiplying by 2. And if I do the same thing to my top number, I get 40. 20 times 2 is 40. So that's going to be the number, or the number of kilometers in distance that she is riding in 2 hours. And again, for the last thing, I'm going from 20 which is my unit rate for 1, equals something. I've got to get to 70 up top. And I don't know that one off the top of my head. Well, actually, I do, because I know 2 times 3, of course, would be 6, and then another 10 would give me 70. So actually multiplying by 3.5. And if I do the same at the bottom, 1 times any number is itself, so 1, it'll be 3.5. So that would be my last one, would be 70 in 3.5 hours. So that is the answer to the top part, or part A, of this problem. But we've got to move on and work then on part B. So we're going to use the point tool to graph the points from the table to show Kaya's distance that she rode based on the number of hours that she rode. So we're going to use our numbers from up top. We have 1/2 hour was 10 kilometers. So I'm going to go from 1/2 hour here on my graph and go to the 10 kilometer spot and put a dot in. If I look back up, I've got 1.5 hours and 30 kilometers. So again, I'm going to go to 1.5 for my number of hours, go up to 30 kilometers and drop in a point. Keep going. I've got 2 hours and 40 kilometers. So 2 hours and 40 and 3.5 hours and 70. So go to 3. Oh, no, take that away. How do I erase here? Let's undo that last one. 3.5 hours and 70 kilometers, way up the top. All right. And if you notice, as we are looking on the graph here, your dots are making a straight line. And that's how you know that this would be correct. Some of you had lines that were not straight. Your dots did not make straight lines. So you should have known straight off the bat that you did not have your ratios correct in your boxes up top. So that would be how you would know there that your numbers were not correct in your chart up at the top if you don't have a straight line. Because remember, when we're dealing with ratios, we're going to make a linear equation, which means we need a straight line when you connect all of the values plotted in for each top and bottom number of your ratio. All right. And again, how many kilometers per hour did she ride? Well, you can actually just follow the one up to where it would match the line. And we actually did that from our ratios up top. We know that it is 20 kilometers per 1 hour. That was our unit rate. And there you go. So 20 kilometers per hour. That's what your graph should have looked like. And there were your values for your top numbers. Remember, we're just finding that 20 miles per hour, finding that unit rate, and then multiplying by the number of hours or dividing by the distance to find our corresponding values for the equivalent ratio. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. So any questions on those, please make sure that you give me a ringy ding when we get back to school on Tuesday, and we can talk those through as we look at our tests. Make sure that you have watched all the way through this video, answer all the questions on the Edpuzzle, submit this bad boy, and that will net you half the points on every question that you missed on your assessment. I will get those put into the grade box or grade sheet as soon as I see your work is done, and you can move on happy knowing that you rock and rolled through the Module 5 assessment. We'll be moving on to Module 6 tomorrow. So thanks for the hard work, guys. We will talk to you soon and see you on Tuesday.